Yo, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to be going over the top 10 best decks in August. These decks are so hot I had to put the sunglasses on. In this video, top 10 decks, lists included, explanations included. If you're watching on YouTube, the lists are going to be in the pinned comment in the comments. You can copy and paste those right into PTCG Live. If you're not watching on YouTube, and you should be, or watch it everywhere it's available, take a screenshot of all the pictures and you can have them on your phone, share them with your friends, all that good stuff. Give this video a like, share with your friends, and tune in. Let us know what your best decks are, you think the best decks are, all that stuff. This is going to be my last top 10 best decks before Worlds, just because I'm going to be traveling to Japan, giving everyone a heads up there. So let's jump into our number 10 spot. Be sure to check out all of the sponsors of the Shuffle Squad, whether you're looking for graded cards, you're looking for singles, sealed. We have all affiliate codes with all of our great sponsors, so be sure to check them out in the description below. Thank you so much for supporting us. Kicking things off, we got Fusion Mew. So Fusion Mew at number 10. And Fusion Mew has been 10 or one of the lower spots for the past few weeks. I don't think this deck's necessarily bad. It just doesn't necessarily have a fantastic matchup spread versus the metagame. Like, yeah, you could spike some matchups, and Palkia is on the rise for sure. This deck does really well against that deck. But does it give you a chance to win against it all the time, or win against all the other Lost in Box decks? This deck might need to be changed up a little bit to compete with those decks. And I don't know if it's worthwhile to change it up because it might lose to other decks once you change that up. So I keep on going back and forth. I think this is just like a general stock list at this point. And if there's anything you want to make a change to, that's likely fine. But I'm just going to go with the stock Mew list heading into Worlds right now. And if you're a Mew main, roll it whichever way you want. Let me know what you think of Mew in general, like in the comments, if you have like a spice list that's working for you. I think this is a deck that's just kind of fallen out of favor to the meta, and that's fine. Mew's had a heck of a run, but if you think that Mew is really good, let us know for sure. We'll jump into number 9. I think a lot of the decks, like once we get to top 8 or higher, I think that's kind of where we have almost anything that can win. I mean, I guess any deck on this video can win. We're kind of in that type of format. So even if your deck doesn't necessarily make it all the way to the top, you don't necessarily need to worry about it too much, because all these decks in the right metagame can win. Moving down a slot this week into number 9 is going to be Arcdura Umbreon. Now, this is a deck that I hold near and dear to my heart, but it is one of those things where I recognize that it might not be the best positioned. As we see other decks that weren't as well positioned, such as Lugia, move towards the top, this deck does have a chance to shine at Worlds if you hit the right matchups. You're not going to beat every single Chien-Pao that you play, and I certainly think that you're going to struggle against Tina. But if you hit a lot of the Lost Zone box decks, Lugia and Gardevoir decks, I could see this deck still making a run. My wife recently won a league challenge, undefeated, playing this deck the other day, and it depends on how the field changes up. If you're good at dodging some matchups, you certainly can see some success with this one. So definitely give it a try. I think this is probably the best Arceus variant that we have in our format. Regardless of positioning, I think this is the best Arc one right now. Here we have it, Rapid Strike Urshifu on a steep drop off to number 8. This might be too steep, but I think as a lot of decks have entered the top of the metagame, a lot of players have forgotten about this deck. Also, a lot of the decks that are entering the top of the metagame tend to do pretty well against this deck. So this deck was once the NAIC winning deck, and I think Cyrus piloted this deck fantastically. I think that this deck has kind of fallen down the ladder, similar to Arcdura, where it's just like we have our 2 finalist decks. The metagame has changed significantly since NAIC, and I think we're entering kind of a new format, if that makes sense. Even though it's still Paldea, the format's kind of settled a little bit differently, and a lot of the decks that are seeing success now certainly aren't the ones that were seeing success before. This deck's still going to do well against Gardevoir, and it's still going to do well against Lost Zone box. I'm slightly worried that its other good matchups are not really anywhere, and a lot of bad matchups have come in recently. So if this is your main deck, I'm sure you'll pull the trigger if you want on playing this deck or not. I think it's still solid, and I have 2 copies built in real life. Just got all those 4 Steel Stones. They're fully complete, so trust me. I still think this deck is good. It's just not the best position deck right now as we approach August. Moving on up a whole bunch is Chien-Pao with Baxcalibur. Now, I thought this deck was kind of like a bad deck for a long time. Like, I went from going like, I get my Blastoise deck back that I saw success with back in the early 2010s. And now I'm just like, that I was like, I think that deck is really bad in our metagame. And now I think the deck is really good, or it's getting a lot better. This is a build that I have inspired from Kieran Farah. They played this like maybe a month and a half ago or something similar like that to a Play Limitless tournament. I think it was a late night event. Did pretty okay. I think it was like a 5-2 record. Recently I played him in the top 4 of my League Cup that I won the other day that had like 70 Masters, and I was really impressed with how his list goes. So I think I'm pretty close to the list that he has. I might be off by a couple cards, but right now I think that this deck, this is the way that I be playing the deck. I think cross switchers are definitely the wave. I like Pokestop a lot. I just like this list a lot. And I think this is like the way that I would be playing Chien-Pao with Baxcalibur. And I think it's like a little bit more of a threat than most people think in the format. Cross-switcher canceling Cologne, Radiant Greninja is a very good combo in our current metagame. So I think this is where I'm at. Might make some changes in the future. Chien-Pao Baxcalibur is probably a real deck. Maybe not the best deck, but definitely a real deck for sure. Can definitely high roll some tournaments. A lot of decks out here slipping, and that's okay. I think Gardevoir has kind of slipped into the mid of the metagame, and that might be the best place for Gardevoir to be. If I'm doing my counting correctly, we should be at number 6. That being said, Gardevoir is hot. I really don't think it's bad. I just think that it doesn't necessarily have the matchup spread that we want against the top decks in the metagame. A lot of decks I feel pretty confident playing against Gardevoir. Maybe I need to be playing against better Gardevoir opponents. Maybe Gardevoir just needs to be played more in my area. There's a lot of questions that I have when it comes to it. But I think as Gardevoir becomes the middle of the metagame, it might just kind of like bubble up before Worlds and sneak back into that number 1 spot. Card that I might want to add into this deck is a second copy of Cresselia, or just more single prize card attackers to deal with a lot of the Lost Zone box decks that are likely at the top of the metagame since we have not seen them and we are about to approach our number 5 pick. I like the Sky Steel Stone in this deck. I like the Double Worker in this deck. Maybe I could cut down on a Stadium and add that Cresselia, and that'd be sick. And I'd be like, yo, this deck is hot. That's kind of where I'm thinking. But this list has been working absolutely wonderfully. So if you're looking for a great, like, solid list to try out for Gardevoir, and you're looking to make a plunge on the deck, this is the one that I'd be looking at. Kind of has it all, in my opinion. But I'm sure when I come back from Japan, I also want to see how Obsidian Flames changes up the metagame. Pretty excited about that, too. Jumping into our number 5 pick, again, falling down a bit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of decks rising at some point, is going to be Turbo Lost Zone Box. Now, this deck is very good. Do not get me wrong. I think that this deck is a very solid deck. I just don't feel like it necessarily wins against anything more than it loses against anything. Like, you can win against almost every deck on this list here. There's not a single deck where I'm like, oh, this is an auto loss. This is really, really bad. I think that this deck is the true kind of middle of the road. And it's too middle of the road right now for it to be higher up on the list. Kind of where Gardevoir is. It's like it's not like these decks are bad. It's what are they winning against that makes you want to play them. They're not really losing. So if you choose any of the decks there, you're just kind of playing on slightly harder mode, where other decks might have been recently better positioned. I mean, again, I think Turbo, Lost Zone Box, and Gardevoir without a metagame are 2 of the 3 best decks, something like that. And I think, like, as the metagame has kind of grown, these decks have just been like, okay, they're great, solid stock picks, and you could definitely win with them. But there might be a better deck that might get you there a little bit easier. It's kind of like reinventing the wheel in a way. And that's not to say that, like, this is a bad choice again. I feel like I'm kind of growing in a circle, but I hope y'all understand where I'm getting at. I think this deck's hot. I think this list is hot. I think there's just other decks that might do it a little bit more efficiently nowadays, and might give you some dubs a little bit easier. Splashing into number 4 is Lost Zone Kyogre. Now, this is very looking similar, I'm sure, as you watch the transition goes in between deck to deck, that this is very based off of a Turbo Lost Zone box deck. And this is what I'm saying, you might be able to get some dubs easier. I think Kyogre is kind of snuck in its place in the metagame and became a little bit better in general. I think this deck is sick. And it's sick right now because a lot of decks do not know what to do against Kyogre. I got my butt handed to me at a League Cup because I could not stop the Aqua Storm from happening. So, if you can't stop the Aqua Storm from happening, and there's a lot of decks that have not factored in Aqua Storm, and there's a lot of players that just might forget about this card being available in decks, this deck is just becoming better and better positioned for the World Championships. So, that's really where it's at. Literally a couple cards different, maybe a little bit more than that for Turbo Lost Zone box, but I think it's a better version of Turbo Lost Zone box right now. That's likely going to change after Worlds, but we'll have to keep that in mind as we continue to progress through the metagame. But this one's hot. Definitely give it a whirl. Swinging into our number 3 pick is going to be Single Strike Lugia V-Star. Now, this is one of those decks that has kind of crept up a lot, and it's seen a lot of success because it does quite well against this metagame, and I've added extra stadiums so that you have more opportunities to get around path. Since we added Squawkabilly in, I don't necessarily like playing Pumpkaboo, so playing the 5 stadiums is nice. I have seen some players go with Lost City. I have seen some players increase their Burnett counts. I think those are great choices as well. Right now, I kind of like where this list is at, so it's one of those things where feel free to try it out. I've seen other lists that play Snorlax, Therapeutic Energy, a lot of cool things going on here. But a strong Lost Zone box matchup, pretty even, a slightly favorable Gardevoir matchup, can hold its own against Tina, can hold its own against Polk, can hold its own against Chien-Pao. I'm like, why is Lugia bad again? And I think that's kind of where a lot of people just like kind of gave up on Lugia, and as the metagame kind of shaped into the new metagame, Lugia became much better. So I think there's still room for some innovation when it comes to this list. And I just think I love the simplicity. It's not necessarily a coin flip deck like a lot of people say. It's just well positioned in the current metagame. So maybe give Lugia a try if you're a Lugia player. This is where I'd kind of go with the list right now. And if you're really worried about path, yeah, you could cut a Messagosa or a Collapse for a Pumpkin. But I think that the 5 stadiums is just hotter right now. Yo, here we got it. We got our number 2 deck. We have Tina V-Star rolling in a Lost Zone box kind of setting. So this deck is really good because hitting your opponent for 280 into an Oko into potentially another 280 is a really good 1-2-3 punch. And whether it takes you 1 Tina or 2 Tinas to get there, pairing that up with Path to the Peak and Hand Disruption with Iono or Roxanne is absolutely fantastic. Biggest question I get about this list is, yo Zach, why do you not run cross switchers? I don't know if I can reliably get cross switchers when it comes to a Lost Zone box deck. I could just be tripping. My group has seen a lot of success with our Tina V-Star lists at cups and challenges, taking down a couple cups, couple top 8 placements, some other strong placements at challenges as well. So, I mean, Tina is just very good. And I'm not trying to say that we invented Tina or nothing like that. We definitely have been inspired by other players and seen some other lists. But I'm just not necessarily a huge fan of the cross-switcher build when it comes to this deck. And that might be a personal preference. I could just be plain wrong. But this is a list that I won a 70 Master Cup with in the Toronto area on just a couple days ago. So, hot and fresh. I think this deck's sick. Definitely very well positioned in the metagame. Not our number 1 pick, and I'm sure I got a lot of y'all guessing what our number 1 pick might be. I have a hot take in this video, and that's my number 1 pick. Put your best guesses below. We'll see how it's going. this deck is our number 1 pick, Palkia V-Star with Chien-Pao. Now, this is an updated list that I have. I've been cooking a lot on this deck, and you might have seen me include it. I think I previously included at number 8 last week, and that was probably like, whoa, a new deck enters, whatever. I have it all the way at number 1 because I truly believe that this is the play for Worlds. Whether I play it or not is going to be another question, but this deck has been absolutely tearing up some online events, been tearing up a lot of spots in our cups lately, and it's a deck not a lot of people are talking about, and I think this is the best list for it. I've done a lot of thinking and a lot of changes, sat down like literally every day. I go through and I'm just rebuilding my decks, updating my decks, play testing, grind testing. This is where I have for this list a lot of things that have changed by cutting an energy, searching for an energy search, adding a Temple of Sinnoh based off the meta game, switching up the escape ropes, adding in a copy of Raihan, adding in Starmie. Like, there's so many things that have changed with this list. Increasing the Battle VIP Pass to 4. I really think that this deck is the real deal. Really simplistic setup when it comes down to it, and then going for that one big turn with Palk V-Star's V-Star ability, and being like, yep, I'm gonna knock out my opponent's 2 single prizers. I'm gonna go for a big attack with Chien-Pao. I'm gonna go for a sneaky KO with Starmie because my opponent didn't see it coming. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on with this deck, and I think that's the reason why it's the best deck in format. Simple, great setup, a lot of energy acceleration, a lot of early game power, and you have a really cool turn per game. And I think this deck really embodies what a V-Star power should be. Similar to like when we had GX attacks, it's kind of like when we were playing like Luke Metal and like people didn't know when to pull the trigger on that ability. I think like as much as the deck's simple, pulling the trigger on the ability is going to be the biggest piece about this deck. So I have it at number 1. Kill me in the comments, right? Tell me how bad I am and all that stuff. That's okay. I mean, I think this deck, like, if it's not number 1, then I think it's number 2. If it's not number 2, it's number 3. If it's not number 3, then I think that you're just not keeping up with the metagame right now. And again, that doesn't mean that it's the best play for you, but I do think it is a solid play in our metagame right now. And that's what we got going on for our video today. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this, learning a little bit more about the top 10 best decks, and we'll catch up with you soon with some great content. This week we have Obsidian Flames releasing on PTCG Live, at least I'm pretty sure it is. So while I'm traveling to Japan, the rest of the squad should be getting those videos out there, and I should have some videos going up there to kind of round out our Paldea Evolved deck profiles. So I think I have an updated Gardevoir and an updated Chien-Pao Bax off the top of my head. Still have to record those, so note to Zach, get your work done, stop procrastinating. But it's one of those things where we will get that done. Hopefully everyone enjoyed, and have yourself a great one. If you are traveling a world, safe travels. If you're watching from home, be sure to stay tuned onto the stream, and stay tuned for some content from the Shuffle Squad. Peace out and have a great one. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.